Hey guys, Steel Ovan here. Today I wanted to talk about knife trading and kind of the trade up that we knife enthusiasts, knife collectors all kind of do. So for my experience personally, I've never done the traditional trading that most people seem to do. I've never exchanged one knife for another knife or multiple knives with another collector. Several reasons for that. First off, there's almost no people in my area that are to this level, collecting and owning hundreds of dollars in pocket knives. So that kind of limits greatly the ability for me to do that. Now, there are forums and things that you can do it on, but that adds in a level of risk. Oftentimes, it is difficult to know the trustworthiness of said trader. So that is one of the reasons I've steered clear of that. Also, the point that I'm in with my collecting, pretty much I'm only looking for a very few specific things. Right now, I pretty much am happy with what I have, which, I roll. That's what everybody says. But no, there's very few things that I'm truly looking for right now. So for me to actually trade something would really take something special. So all of that has just led me to so far not to do a trade in the traditional sense. But what I do oftentimes is I'll have, for different reasons, I'll have one knife. Take this guy for example, the utilizer. So before I had a very crappy, like $20, kind of gas station folding utility knife. And that worked for a while, but eventually that got old and broken, and I no longer trusted the lock on it. So I retired that, threw it away, and kind of traded up. So that money was lost in that sense, but I traded for something that I perceived to be worse, for something that is of much higher quality, much higher value, and offers things that the other one could not, both in performance, namely that I have more cutting edge exposed than the other one did. Also, it has some sort of warranty that is better. The pocket clip is better, etc. So that's one reason that I've sort of done the trade up. Another reason I've done this. So you guys remember my brass scaled PM2, or excuse me, it was Para 3, I think. Yeah, it was Para 3. But it was a Blade HQ exclusive M4 blade steel that I did like a patina on with apple cider vinegar, and I had put scales on it that were brass, that kind of patinaed. And that was cool in the moment, but my tastes have since evolved. So during that time, I was not quite into as high end knives as I was, and for me that was a really cool knife. It had the brass scales were interesting and different. I hadn't had anything with that, and with time, I just kind of realized yeah, it had good action, but it literally never was getting carried. Not because of the weight per se, but just the overall design. The blade was too tall for me, and I tended to reach for a bigger knife, like the paramilitary 2, over that. So that one actually got sold recently, and in its stead, I picked up this Native 5 in LC200N, which is a very cool knife here. Similar size, but in my eyes, better. It's got the blade is lower. It's not as high of the spidey hole isn't up way high above the blade, and the handles on it have good traction. The Para 3 did not have any traction because it was just slick copper or slick brass. The locking mechanism is just different. I don't have that many backlocks, and I do like backlocks. So, this one's a backlock. It's got this cool yellow handle, which I like the color on. I like the blade steel over the M4. Generally speaking, I tend to prioritize corrosion resistance over, true cutting performance, just because of where I live. I also tend to have kind of sweaty hands and whatnot, and I rust blades like crazy. So this is one of the ones that I kind of traded, and in a way it was traded down for, because the overall cost of that one was much greater than this Native 5. But in my eyes, this has a, higher value, at least for what I'm looking for. This is probably $130, $150, I don't know. I don't quite remember what I paid for it, but it's also lighter weight. It's easier to carry, and it just has that benefit of being nigh unrust proof, which I really, really think is cool. So for me, that was a worthy, up trade in value, but also down trade in money. So it actually, made me some money that I could put into something else. And I have the same roll in pocket knife filled. Same deal with this guy. You guys probably remember the my Para 2 that I had with S110V blade steel, and that was a satin blade with titanium scales on there. So that one also got sold, and that was because I'd picked this guy up at Blade Show. This is the M4 guy. Excuse me, not M4, Maximate. You can see the patina's going there nicely. And this one's got the lighter weight handles. They're the G10s. They have a little bit more traction than the titanium did. It's lighter weight, as I said. I threw the pocket clip from the Para 3 on there, so I like having that deep carry clip. That's kind of nice. The blade steel I like better. I don't feel bad about using this one. And that's one of the main reasons is the 110V I just could never bring myself to use, because it was pristine, and I've heard things about it being a super pain to sharpen, it chipping out, and just not being as good as Maximate in general. So that's why I chose to keep this one, which I got at a discounted price at the show. So I saved myself, again, probably over $100, maybe closer to $200, by keeping this one over that one. But in my eyes, this one has higher perceived value to me. So that was technically a trade down, but a trade up in my eyes. That's if you're only judging a knife based on its monetary cost, not based on its performance and the features that it has. So another one, here's a new knife you guys haven't seen yet. You guys remember my Gen 4 working finish drop point XM18 that I had? Well, I sold that one. It served me well, but I wanted to try out the Hinder Battle Black finish, which I really like. I think it looks super badass. It's that Stonewash DLC. So I sold that one and got this guy on the exchange. Some guy was selling it. I actually what was I buying? I was buying something else from him, and he said, "Hey, I saw you had on your profile that you were looking for a Battle Black XM18, and I'd be willing to sell it." And I was like, "Yeah, dude, that's almost exactly what I was looking for. That'll directly replace, the one that I had, and I'll get to try out the cool finish." So this one I think looks really badass. It's in 20 CV as opposed to S35VN. I'm not really a steel snob. I could take it or leave it. Hinder S35VN is also awesome. Maybe even arguably better than 20 CV. I don't know, just depending what you want out of the steel. But so this one's, in my eyes, was a worthy trade up again. This one I now have the option to do the bearings, do the washers, or do the Teflon washers. So that one's cool. I would like to put the phosphor bronze washers in this. I haven't done that yet, but that I think will be the best for work. The other one I was limited to only the Teflon washers, which worked okay. I did have some detent lash developing on that old Gen 4, so I didn't feel too bad to move it along. It wasn't bad or anything, but I could just tell that it was not as tight as this guy who was just breaking in, getting old. So this guy's is really neat. I threw that recycled scale on there, Python micarta that I dyed black. That's been on that Gen 4 a bunch. So I think it looks really cool. And I threw those black screws on there, of course. As far as wear goes, I pretty much just got this, so I haven't been carrying it a ton. So you're not going to see a lot of wear on it yet. But this is going to be my new work XM18. I also swapped the over travel stop out for a black one. So kind of a blacked out XM18. So that's another cool trade up that I did. Another trade up maybe. I don't actually have one to show you, but I sold my Sebenza 21. Yes, I know everybody's gasping. Oh, how could you? The unique graphic, it was so cool. Yes, it was cool. But the reason I sold it is the show scale was satin. It was a satin show scale. It scratched up very easily. I carried it only a handful of times because of that, and I felt held back by the finish because I was unable to refinish it. It was a discontinued model. It was very rare, and I was able to sell it for a very good price. So that made me happy, and I was able to buy a Sebenza 31 then, which you guys will probably see on the channel eventually. But that, in my eyes, once again, was a nice little trade up, selling one thing that I had lower perceived value and getting something else that had higher perceived value. So I'm not really sure what I was planning to achieve in this video. More just talking about like my experience. This is a thing in the knife community, is keeping things new and interesting, keep changing, swapping your collection. That's always something people talk about. For me, the easiest way that I've been able to do it, first off, is like going to shows. You can always shop online retailers. Like I bought this from a retailer or whatever. This I bought from a show. This I bought from a forum. This is from Blade Forums. If you can find a community that buys, sells, trades knives, that is probably your best bet. My favorite, the first one that I ever joined, was Blade Forums. And so far I've had 0 negative interactions on there. It has all been awesome. As long as you follow the rules and pay attention, it's really good. It's a very community oriented and based. Unlike things like Reddit, which can sometimes be called into question, the authenticity of the sellers. They have those things. You have to take pictures and whatnot, with the date and everything. I've never done that. I don't know. It just looks like more of a hassle. I'm sure you could do it, but that's been my experience with trading knives and the sort of trade up that we all kind of do. Hope you guys liked the video. If you did, throw a thumbs up for me or whatever, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, bye.